What's up, Internet? You're tuning in episode 75 of the Steam Deck Podcast, Flip Screen Games' weekly gaming podcast, all about Valve's portable PC powerhouse, the Steam Deck. I'm your host, Pete and Bessie, joined today by my very good friend and co-host, Mr. Max Wright.
Ahoy, ahoy.
Welcome back to the show, Max.
Thank you very much.
And man, it's full steam ahead this week because it is Steam Next Fest. And you and I have both played a collection of games. We both played a few games. We both have brought 3 games to the table, one of which we both played to make a top 5 for our 5 favorite games that we played at Steam Next Fest. And the games that we think you should check out and keep an eye on, you know, some of them are coming out really soon, actually, which was the thing I was very surprised by how many of these games had release dates like in February, you know?
There's a game that I played that we're not really going to talk about too much today. One, because I'm playing it for review, and two, because by the time this episode goes out, it'll be out in 2 days. So why play the demo? You can just get the whole game. Why play the demo now when you can play it? We can get the whole game. Whatever. That game is Ultros, by the way. You may have seen the video we put out last week on TikTok and Instagram and YouTube and everywhere else, where I mentioned that game as something I'm looking forward to for Next Fest. We will talk about that game in full on next week's Flip Screen Games podcast, I believe. Is that right,
Yes,
Pete?
it'll be over on the Flip Screen Games podcast. We'll have a full review of the game as well as alongside Embargo. And we'll also have a couple other smaller pieces of content like recommended settings to play on Steam Deck and some of, Max's like tips for new players and stuff like that. So huge shout out to the team at behind Ultos for hooking us up with a code.
Absolutely. So let's get into some Next Fest games, shall we, Pete?
I'm sorry, I said Ultos. It's Ultros.
Ultros.
Excuse me.
It's fine. I'm sure. Should we start again? Do you wanna roll it again? Or?
No. We're good. We're good. So
I'd say let's start with the game that we've both played.
I was gonna say, yeah, that sounds good to me.
Lovely.
We'll jump
Perfect.
into the game that we both made the time for this week, which is Tales of Kenzera ZAU. That was, of course, the other game that you featured in your video that went out this week about like basically like the 2 Metroidvanias you were most looking forward to jump into during Next Fest. Of course, you being the number 1 Metroidvania guy here and
Right.
on the internet, I'd say even, right? Like number 1.
I like to believe so. I like to believe I'm number 1 at everything I do, but, I can't verify that, but you guys can. So as listeners, you can verify that I'm number 1 by just believing in your hearts.
And, this was one that, I forget. I think the first time we saw it was maybe in, like, a Nintendo Direct, I wanna say,
It
or
was the
something
Game
like.
Awards. It was the Game
Oh, it
Awards.
was Game
Now
Awards, right.
yeah. I can't remember the guy's name off the top of my head now. He, came on stage at the Game Awards, sort of dressed
Yes.
in that great outfit, and he was talking about how much this game meant to him, and how he was telling a story through, similar to the stories that his dad told him when he was younger. And it's a very personal story for him about his, you know, relating to hear the stories that his father would tell him, telling the story of a young man who's lost his father. So it's very personal to him and the people that worked on it with him. So this is what I've been looking forward to since it was revealed, and I was very happy to find out it was going to be playable. And it seems great. I'm really glad that it seems, they seem to have nailed it so far. It's
Yeah.
crazy to think that when I think about, what companies are going to release, 2 hit Metroidvanias in 2023 or 2024. Sorry, I would never have said Ubisoft and EA of the 2 because they're just, they don't do stuff like this usually.
Sure.
So I'm really glad that they've put the effort into this. I think this is under EA's got like a smaller. I
The,
can't remember
EA
the
Originals, yeah.
That's the one.
It's
Um,
interesting, man. I wonder if we won't see more stuff like this because there's been all this conversation the last, how like year and change, I guess, about how like AAA is becoming unsustainable, right?
mhm.
And like I wonder if you'll see these kind of bigger publishers take more swings on mid-sized games like this that, cost less to make, take less time, and can come out and be a critical darling and, and maybe not make billions and billions, but that can be like a nice, um, strong single player release that resonates with people.
Yeah, I like to think so, but when we sort of heard the news that Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown hasn't done as well as maybe Ubisoft would like, we don't know that's
Yeah,
what they'd like, but some numbers were mentioned that didn't sound great, which is a shame. But I think also that Ubisoft has a track record of releasing their games and then putting them down really quickly in price, and they have Ubisoft Plus, so I
right.
think there's probably more at play there. We don't know if it was really a success for them or if they consider it a success. We'll have to wait until they have like an earnings report or something. But yeah, we'll see. Hopefully they do stuff like this because I feel like this is great. Let's get into the game a bit here. So for those who don't know, it's a 3D or a 2.5D Metroidvania. You play as the character Zao, who is a shaman who's lost his baba, his father, and he's sort of going on like a spiritual quest to honor his father and become closer to him, while remembering the stories that he told him as a kid. I think there's like a meta story where there's like this is the story being read by a man who's remembering his dad, and then the character is also doing the same, which is then also the creator's also doing the same. There's like a triple layered thing here going on. I
That's really
think.
interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I
Um,
think that there's yeah, like there's like a character that's also going through it at the same time. But this feels great to play. I think it's not like not it's not well optimized on Steam Deck. I will say we played all of these games on Steam Deck, and of the ones that I want to talk about, this one performed the worst. And I don't know if that's going to be just because it's an unoptimized demo, which we saw with Prince of Persia. We've seen
that's
with a few
kind of
games.
I wanna give it that benefit of the doubt right
Hmm.
now because, like, even in, like, the opening of it, like, it says, like, "Hey, like, please recognize that this is a demo so that, like, if there is performance issues or bugs or whatever, that it's, like, not representative of the final product."
Hmm.
Which I think is fair when you're talking about especially the fact that we're running it on deck, right? Like, if we were running it on our desktops, it probably would have been more stable, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, Lots of games like this end up getting a deck optimized version or end up, the community comes up with a version that runs pretty well. Did you play
Yeah.
with the settings at all? Because I played with
I
them and
Yeah, I didn't get much out of it. I managed to make it look horrendous while not really improving the performance very much. So I was able to
yeah,
have like a happy medium, I think.
that's what I was gonna say is that's my biggest concern is that when I did adjust the settings and try to like make them like I tried to limit it to like 30 and put everything on
Mhm.
medium and it was still not performing great. So
Well, there's a couple of examples for you. Resident Evil 4, the demo for Resident Evil 4, I played that on PS5, then I played it again on Steam Deck, and it was awful on Steam Deck, like unplayable. And after coming from Resident Evil Village and things like that, the other Resident Evil games, I was really disappointed. Then I ended up playing most of Resident Evil 4, the full remake, on Steam Deck, and it was fine. So
so
there
that's
is a lot to be said of demos not being properly optimized, or it's an older version of the game, or they haven't thought about the PC. And also why would they? They're trying to get a demo out to appeal to the most people. Why are they going to spend time optimizing it for the Steam Deck when
right.
you know they can do that in time for the full release? So I hold out hope for this. Other than that, but
I agree, and to
yeah,
me, that was my only problem with it because I agree with you, like, I think it feels really good to play, I think the combat, is, like, really easy to get into, right? Like, basically,
yeah,
you have these 2 masks that you're switching between, there's one that's the moon and one that's the sun, and the sun has, like, kinda more melee-focused combat, and the moon is, like, more projectile-oriented, and it has, like, a
yes,
a a meter that goes down as you fire projectiles, so like I was kind of finding myself using that for like long range initiation. And then when my meter ran out, I'd get into sun form and run up and kill anybody
yes,
that was left and kind of rinse repeat. And I found that to be really like a satisfying flow of combat, especially as they started introducing tougher enemies that had like an extra health bar or like a
yeah.
shield that I needed to maneuver around. Um,
I think
I
there's some elemental stuff in play as well. Like I know that the sun mask is fire and the moon mask is ice because there's sort of a power you unlock that gives it like an ice ability. Spoilers for you, Pete, for where you are in the demo. But
no
I
worries.
feel like there are some elements in play where like the enemies have certain colors, and I was
Yes,
swapping between them to match it to sort of be the opposite color. Whether that was working or not, or if it was just like something I was doing to do it, but it isn't quick to swap between them. It's zippy. It's like fire,
it's
fire,
a
fire.
button.
Swap, hit, hit, hit. Yeah, you just press LB.
And I
Or
I imagine that as you level up, I wouldn't be surprised if there was some interplay where there's combos where you can, like, switch mid combo or something, like, I
yeah.
it is that seamless that I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case.
There's already abilities that are like, you know, I upgraded the sun one first because I was using a lot of the melee more than I was the range stuff, and that was like press X, the attack button, at the right time to sort of do more damage. And I wonder if there's going to be like, oh, mid attack, press this to swap into this, because I do feel like I thought when I started playing it, I was like, this feels quite retro. It feels quite arcadey because it doesn't feel like it's got like the weight and the heft of like some of the Souls like Metroidvanias I've played. It didn't feel like there was sort of like a big focus on parries and dodges as much, like with Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, but I did feel like it was like a PS2 era sort of bang, 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 hop around, bang, bang, bang kind of come back to, I really
But, like
enjoyed. Like, I'm not that's not a negative at all. Like, I think I really enjoyed that stuff, but the fact that it does evolve and there is a big skill tree does make me think that there is gonna be more to it, and then it will evolve as you go, which is good.
yeah, I agree. The aiming of the moon attack kinda reminded me of Metroid Dread a little bit too, like, with the
Yeah.
aiming in that or, like, in Samus Returns was also had that kinda, like, free aiming.
Yes, where you hold a button to sort of to actually get your free aim.
Yeah, which I thought was cool. And then there's another section in the demo that I got to, which, like, you'll actually be seeing right now on YouTube, if you're watching over there, where there's, like, platforming, like, there's, like, a platforming section as you're kinda going down these rapids, which I thought was, like, a good like, it wasn't I it felt very like, we're introducing you to the concept that sometimes this is going to happen, right? It wasn't difficult, but, it
Yeah,
it was a
it did.
good breakup of the, like, rhythm I had been in so far of exploration, combat, right?
Yes. Did irk me slightly. One of my sort of big pet peeves with Metroidvanias, only really Metroidvanias, not other games, is like instant death spikes. Or just generally like with games that aren't built around it. Because I don't mind it so much when like you fall into a pit and then you appear at the edge of the pit, fine. But with this, specifically where you were, I would clip the edge of a spike and then it would take me back to not where I last, was stood. It would take me back to the beginning of that segment already in motion. So it
Yeah.
felt a bit like I was failing a QTE more than I was like not, and every now and again you wouldn't even notice it. As you do what you think is a good jump, you would just clip it and it would like kill you immediately. And that did annoy me.
Yeah,
And
I get that.
there was one later. I don't know if you did the one after that where there's like the triangle symbol that's like his Zhao's father painted these symbols and it's like a
No, I haven't
challenge.
gotten there yet, but that's
Oh,
okay, go
okay.
ahead. Go ahead, you
Well,
can talk about that.
that was another challenge where I was like, this is I can see where they're going with this, but I also feel like this is a bit long before I get like an extra. Maybe it's just 'cause I'm trash as well, but I did do the whole of Prince of Persia and didn't never once felt this problem where I was just like, "Oh, I'm dying." But that's, again, that's not that's because I'm playing it and expecting something else, I guess. But when I'm sort of playing this and I'm more into this, when we play the full game, I think I'll feel differently, and I think I'll appreciate what it is, not what I expect it to be or what I think it's going to be.
I
It's
I
hard to
found
get that from
myself
demos.
getting really into the rhythm of it by the end of not that I'm, like, done with the demo, I guess, but, like, the end of my time, right? I was
Mhm.
playing it up to, us sitting down to record, and, I definitely would like to play some more, for sure, but, uh yeah, because I think the thing I was worried about with this game was I was very interested in it when it was first shown off, because of its narrative, right? And
Mhm.
and its art style and everything. Like, I think it's got a really nice look to it, especially on the OLED, right? Like the cutscenes and everything look really, really sharp. Obviously, we had some performance issues, like moment to moment in the gameplay, which I'm hoping will clear up because there are some really nice backgrounds and everything. But
Mhm.
I was experiencing like that muddiness where it's kind of like it's hard to appreciate the style of it as much.
Yes.
But, but yeah, like, I think the story obviously is something that is just really unique, right? Because it's like, when it comes to, representation of, like, other cultures' mythology, it's something that's just really, like, it just doesn't come up a lot, right? Like, at
Yeah,
least
you get a
not
ton of
in
Greek, you get a ton of Egyptian,
yeah.
but you rarely see African. I think for me specifically, maybe a lot of people, Black Panther is probably gonna be their first real experience or real exposure to that sort of style
Right.
of,
And even that, right? It's that is a fake
yeah.
country, right? Like
Yeah,
Wakanda
yeah.
is like it's a really, really cool exploration of like the concept of like Afrofuturism, right? And
Mhm.
like that's super cool. And not to take anything away from how awesome the like, uh way they took real like influence from African culture and created something like that was gonna be, like uniquely Wakandan. Getting to see something that is like this is specifically the mythology of the Bantu people, right? And it's like I don't know any of their myths. Like that I've never even heard of them before I heard of
Yeah,
this game, right? And
yeah,
like
same.
you said, right? Like with, Greek mythology, the Roman gods, right? Which are basically the same thing anyway. And Egypt and everything, right? Like that's so well represented in
Oh, yeah, we know
Western
that.
media because it's European, right? And it's like, so much of like Christianity is built on that mythology as well, right? So it's
Yeah.
like there's so many elements of it that are very present in Western, culture. And, even like, like Chinese mythology, right? And like, Indian mythology, like I'm not as exposed or familiar to those things, but like I could name an Indian god, right? Like,
Mhm.
like I'm at least familiar with the iconography a little bit and,
Yeah.
Bollywood movies and like Chinese movies like do get imported to the States, right? And like a lot of, there is a lot of uh that stuff like gets distilled down into other pieces of media more
Yes.
frequently, even if it's less, right? Whereas like to your point, like I really can't think of another example besides Black Panther. That's something that I've ever been exposed to. And Black Panther is American, right? In its creation.
Yes, yeah.
Um,
Yeah, and I do think there are elements of things like the afterlife that they things that they touch on, the tree that is in that I do think is
yeah,
featured in this. There's a lot of crossover with that, and I think that makes it seem familiar to people that have played it. Sorry, that have seen this sort of stuff. But this is more authentic. I think there is more of a direct knowledge because the stories are coming directly from the creator's father. But yeah, I agree with you that I think the narrative is going to be interesting, and there is like an interesting playoff between the main character and the other character he's speaking to, he's like, if I go on this
that
quest, will you give him my father back? Um, which is interesting. And I think it's good that you can start to see already, even at this early on, that Zhao is like a young man who is like so obviously consumed by his father's death, and he's acting rashly because of it, and decisions he's making, and the death character is sort of scolding him for it. You wonder how much of that is like actually happening, how much of that is like in his head kind of thing. It's an interesting tale, and I think it's well acted so far. I'm not being blown away by the acting. It's not like I'm like, oh, this is a performance that like God of War or God of War Ragnarok. But I also think a lot of that comes down to it's not mocapped. It's not taking the time to show you cutscenes or acting. It's just voices over pictures, and there's only so much you can do with that. But I think it's serviceable, and I
I
think
think the
it's great.
script has been good though,
Yes,
which
I
I
agree.
think goes a long way, right? Because like I totally agree with you. There's a scene I got like like already, right? It's very early on in the game. It's like within the first 20 minutes, right? Where like he is acting rashly, right? And in grief, and death kind of calls him out and is like, and he's like, oh, I'm doing this to honor my father, my baba. And he's like, are you honoring him by, putting yourself in danger by,
Mhm.
scaring a little kid in this, cutscene earlier, right? Like things like that. And I like that emotional push and pull. And I think you can kind of, at least I have an idea of where I think the narrative's going, right? And it's
Yes.
going to be about loss and acceptance and growth and that the people we love are not really gone and things like that. But getting to explore those themes that are extremely universal, right? Like through myth is like that's what we do, right? Like that's human storytelling. And it's like
Yeah.
I don't know, I'm just so excited to get what looks like a really cool, robust story about fathers and sons, which is something I love my dad, so I respond to that. And again, right, like getting to get a peek into a culture that I'm just really not familiar with. And like that's my favorite thing about video games is like how experiential they are. Um, you can literally walk a mile in somebody else's shoes to some extent, right? And like
Yeah.
that's so empowering. It's such a great way to communicate universal ideas like cross culturally, right? So like I was really into that aspect and hoping the gameplay would like live up to it. And I feel like it's got a loop I was feeling. So I think as long as it runs well on deck, like this could be a day oneer for me.
I think this is a I think I'm definitely gonna get this day one, there's no question about it. I think even if it doesn't perform well on the Steam Deck, I will still, like, be able to stream it from my PC or even just play it straight from my PC if I wanted to, but, yeah, this feels like a day one for me. It's,
I think it's day and date on at least PlayStation or something else too. So it's like
I think it might be on everything,
so
I'm
yeah, there you go. So
pretty
you have other options even if the deck version is like not ready day
yeah,
one.
this is Nintendo Switch, PS5, Xbox, and PC.
But
So,
I'm pretty confident we'll have a deck ready version by
yeah.
proper launch date.
Ooh,
I would hope.
I wonder what the, Switch version is gonna be like if the demo's like this on deck. But we also don't know what
Yeah.
we can't base our game on a demo,
No, no, no.
as
And
we've seen.
yeah. And I will say, right, like slowdown and frame rate drops are like really not the worst errors to be having in a demo,
Yeah,
right? Like it's not like it
yeah.
crashed. It's not like I couldn't play it.
Yeah,
Um,
I did have one issue where I had to restart actually. There's a bit where, you kill a couple of enemies, you got to pull a block out to hop up somewhere, but I couldn't press the button to do the block. I was going back and forth, nothing was happening. I restarted and the cutscene just didn't kick in where a character spoke to me, and after the character spoke to me, I could pull the block. That's the one issue I had that wasn't just like, "Oh, it runs a bit funny," or whatever, you know?
Okay.
But yeah, looking forward to this one. Shall I go straight into my next one, P?
Yeah, I was gonna say, let's get into your next one. The next game on your list was Pepper Grinder. This is a Devolver Digital joint. This is another one that we've seen a few times. I
Yes.
remember this game. So I'm imagining this is one that people will be excited to get an update on. What'd you think of it?
This is a game that I've been sort of watching the development of it for years. I've been sort of following the creator on Twitter when he's been sort of showing off, um, just like little ideas of the game and like the elements of it that he's trying out. When it was revealed as a Devolver Digital partnership, and then when it was revealed as like the full game, I think it was during a Nintendo Direct. This was first like fully revealed as Pepper Grinder, like releasing with Devolver Digital. I was hyped. I was excited for it. I'm there for it. So I'm really excited that I got to finally try it out. And what I think is so good about Pepper Grinder is it's such a simple premise, but it's like so well executed. You have a drill in your hands. Um, you hold right trigger to use your drill, and then you can sort of drill through dirt. And as you're drilling through the dirt, you can control the direction. You can drill through enemies. You can drill through little coins and gems that are in there. And when you drill out of the dirt, you get like a momentum boost. So you're trying to go down and then boost yourself up, and you can jump at the same time as you do it to get even more of a boost. Um, so you're basically trying to sort of maneuver your way through levels where there'll be like chunks of dirt floating, and there'll be rocks to break and all sorts. But the drill is also used to do things like move platforms. You put the drill in this platform to move it up. Um, it you can pick up a key. The key is like attached to the drill when it's spinning. There's secret walls you can break. There's enemies you can fight, and it just feels good. Like it's like I said, it's so simple. It's just like, but it feels great that when I showed Kat, she was like, "Oh, I hate," because she doesn't like pixel graphics. She was like, "Oh, I don't know about this." And then she saw me come out. She was like, "Oh, that's satisfying. Like, oh, that's nice." And then I sort of like did a couple of loop de loops, and she was like, "Oh yeah, that's really nice."
That that is one of those games where, because I don't know, you know how there's like you'll see a demo for a game sometimes and you're like, that looks fun, but I feel like I need to like get hands on it before I
Yeah,
can understand how it feels. I, something about it is just like it just makes sense. It communicates like I saw it and was like, oh, that's gonna be a fucking hit. Right. Like
yeah.
it just the momentum of it, like you said, right? She saw it and was immediately like, oh, like it's
Like,
got
you
that.
understand how you do it and what you're doing, and, like, yeah, there's not a you don't there's no hurdle to overcome. It's just like, "I know if I do this, then this happens."
Yeah. It reminds me, and, like, this is very high praise, right? But it reminds me of how I felt, like, the first time I saw a game like Shovel Knight or, like, Celeste,
Mhm.
where it's
I
like,
was thinking
"Ooh,
Celeste, it had, like, a Celeste feel to it of, like, um, yeah, sure, you can just sort of, like, do the basic stuff. If you're willing to put the time in and sort of learn the mechanics of it, you can really,
yeah."
like, find the secrets and get
Well,
yourself around and speedrun and stuff.
and I think the way that it's, like, about momentum too is very
Mhm.
much like, I mean, it's honestly like both of those games. I think the reason I it reminds me of Celeste in its, like, verticality a lot
Mhm.
and the way that you're, like, launching yourself, but the fact that you're using a weapon for platforming is, like, very Shovel Knight, right? Is, like,
Bouncing on
the head
heads and
bounce
such.
is, like, such a huge part of a lot of the, like, precision platforming in that game, and the way that it's, like, it's kinda both of those, and there's boss fights and everything, it's like, yeah, like, it just yeah, I mean, it looks really, really promising.
Yes.
So to
Yeah.
hear you say that it like, you feel like it's is it living up to those expectations for you?
It hits, man. It just hits.
Yeah,
There's 3 levels, I think, and, I played through them all and was like, "Great," and immediately start the first one again, just because I wanted to sort of just feel more there's something to say about a game, it's sort of like Spider-Man where, um, even when there's, like you're done with the content the game is giving you, where you're just like, "I just wanna be doing the thing that you're doing," so whether it's swinging around or drilling around, like, that there's something to be said about a game where it's like, "This feels good enough to play, but I don't need all of that stuff to sort of wanna enjoy it."
it's
Also,
the,
that
I always think of that as being it's the Mario 64 thing,
Mhm.
right? Where they were like if you read about the development of that game, right? It was like before we worry about anything else, we want it to be fun to just move around, to just
Yeah.
explore 3D space, and that controlling the character just is so enjoyable that
Yeah.
that's enough of a game in and of itself,
Yes,
and you can
and
see that.
this has that. Yeah, this has that. Yeah, there's like I said, there's a lot of momentum and there's sort of precision at play, like, that sort of ties into what we're saying about Celeste.
I guess it's
But
kinda Meat Boy-ish as well in that way.
there's less. I mean, Celeste, I feel like has very much like Meat Boy running through it, where it's just like die, 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 die. This doesn't really have that
Yeah.
element of like you die, you die. This is like you have a health bar, or like you have like hearts, or chunks of health, and enemies can do a little
Okay.
bit of damage to you. There's not like instant death spikes,
There's the
which
Shovel
is
Knight.
yes, yeah, yeah, yeah. And so the levels are, it's very much about momentum and moving through, but there is also a lot of like action-packed stuff and secrets and puzzles that make you want to sort of stop and take a breath and scour the environment. There's 6 golden coins hidden in each of the levels, so I sort of went through and tried to find as many of them as I could. I missed 1 out of the 16,
Is
18 that there
is
were.
there a reward for them aside from bragging rights, or is it just kinda like
So far, I think it feels like it's just bragging rights, but there's only they only give you the 3 levels, and then
right.
there's a shop, and you go in the shop and you can spend there's treasure throughout the game, which is obviously very satisfying to, like, pick up bits of treasure and sort of hit everything as you go, and you can spend that on, like, collectible stickers. There's a sticker book, and there's, like, health. You can buy extra health in case you get stuck. But the health I can see is like it's temporary. So when you buy the health, if you lose it, you go back down to the 3 that you initially start with. So there's some light combat going on, but I wonder if that's going to evolve as you go and they start to introduce bosses. I've seen in the trailer there's some bigger enemies and more interesting stuff. There's like a lot of room here, I think, as well, for only having played the first 3 levels, and for it to feel like there's enough variety, and that there's some cool stuff later on with like platforms where you hit. This might even be in the trailer that you've been shown before, where you hit like a blue platform and you move that on like
Yes,
a
yeah, it's like
pin.
you use it for, like, puzzling and
Yeah, and then
yeah,
there's like another blue
totally.
one that moves, and if you hit the red one, you've got to use that to get yourself to climb up, and then you combine that with other elements. Like, there's a lot going on here. This is clearly a game being developed by someone that's very capable, and they've got a lot of ideas, and they've taken, like I say, a very simple concept of like, what if I had a drill in my hands and I could drill through the dirt and pop out? I think they describe it as like a dolphin, if that helps you visualize it, where you like go down and up and you pop up like a dolphin,
Yeah,
and
totally.
um,
That makes
and
sense.
they've taken that and they've run with it, and I'm really this is probably my favorite game I've played at
Hell
Next
yeah.
Fest.
Awesome. Alright, I'm gonna
Um,
go download this after we're done
yeah,
talking.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. This is it helps that I was excited for this, but that didn't guarantee that I was going to enjoy it when I played it, and I
Do
did, and they've done it.
do we
So,
have a release date on this guy?
that is a great question. Let me double check.
Wonder.
I think you can apply. Like they are currently in the process of like getting codes and stuff like that, because I would like to sort of be able to review this, if possible.
Yeah, me
So
too.
I think it's you can have this one then. So I'm pretty sure there is a release date. Oh, it just says 2024, but it's imminent. It's coming out. I
Well,
think
reach out to them now and let them know I want a code.
my boy Pete wants to play Pepper Grinder.
I'm out here. Number
I'll
1
let
platforming fan.
Yeah, I think this is a good one. I think everyone should give this one a go, even if it's something I'm not sure you're interested in or aware of. I think
Yeah,
this is like a
one to watch.
Devolver Digital are great. They do great stuff, and this is definitely another one. They've
They
gone with the developers have gone with a fantastic partner here, because it just feels like a Devolver Digital game, like the
yeah.
quality of it. So yeah, I'm just watching the trailer on repeat now in the out of the corner. So
They
yeah,
pre
let's
they
move on
pretty
to one.
rarely miss, over at Devolver, so yeah, I think
Yes,
the
I
fact that it
agree.
looks this good, that you're playing the demo and it feels that good, it's like, "Alright, this is probably a winner."
Absolutely.
Speaking of a game that I think is an absolute winner, this game surprised me a lot because I had not heard of it. Like, I literally judged this game by its cover, and I felt very rewarded for doing so. Um, it's a weird one for me, not super my genre in a couple of ways, but, like, yeah, it caught my attention. The game is called, Mullet Mad Jack, and, it is a, like, vaporwave 90s anime inspired like Doom arena type shooter, and it's also a roguelite where
Okay.
basically the core mechanic is and again you're set in this like kind of very, very visually in love letter to that kinda, like, vaporwave, like, anime, Instagram, lo-fi reel culture, and it has this story, or, like, setting that is, like, very, very much a kinda parody of, like, cyberpunk type, stories where you play this, you know, like if Duke Nukem knew he was a joke type character, I think, right? Who's like a very like 80s tough guy and he drives a cool car and blah blah blah. And
Yeah.
the setting or the kind of pitch of it is that in the future, mankind and the internet have like converged and created like a new species, and you need a certain amount of stimulation like every however many seconds or you'll die. And you get drafted into this like live stream game show where you're supposed to be rescuing this you know influencer princess like e-girl anime type character, and she's at the top of this tower, and it's you're going like 10 floors at a time, and as you go you unlock a new kind of like modifier at the end of each level or of each floor, right? So it might be like you get a submachine gun, right? In my I'll go what I did in my first run. I got a submachine gun for my first upgrade, so my firing rate was increased, right? And then on the next level, I got an ability that allowed bullets to ricochet, right? If 50% chance. And then I got another update that made it a 100% chance. So I could literally walk into a room and just shoot at the walls and it would just bounce and take everybody out, shit
Excellent.
like that. And then there's so you have like a weapon in one hand, it can be a gun, it can be a melee weapon, there's like a fire sword and a shotgun and
I'm just looking at the video now. I've seen swords, I'm seeing knives.
yeah, all kinds of shit. And then there are like knives and crowbars and some of those other things that are secondary weapons that you'll just find in the world, and you can do like a it's like a cutscene kill, and that'll like max back up your timer. So like that's how the timer works, right? Is like on easy mode, it's like every 15 seconds. I think it's 10 on hard, and then I think it's 5, whatever, whatever, right? And you have to kill something every however many seconds to keep that timer going. And there are like different modifiers that you can do to like make it increase. Like if you get like a regular kill, it might be 3 seconds, right? But like if you got a modifier when you leveled up, it might be like, oh, every time you do a melee, you get an extra 2 seconds or something like that. But then there's also like environmental stuff that you can interact with. Like you could blow up a fire extinguisher and an explosion kill will get extra damage, or like there will be like an electrical panel on the wall you can kick a guy into, and like that'll get you a bonus. And then there are like vending machines and stuff like that sitting around that you can like hit, and you use those to like remax out your time. So it's like a really satisfying, like you have the kind of chaos of an arena shooter, right? Um and it's very much not just instead of managing your health, you're managing your combo and your time and like trying to make sure that you can keep the run going. Um, and like, keep getting your upgrades, right? And like it does a really good job of blending what is fun about arena shooters, roguelites, um and like kind of recontextualizes those things a little bit, right? Like it definitely still has that like crazy like I'm running around trying to survive like energy of something like Doom, but because you're actually racing through a floor to get to the end of the level, you don't have to kill everything that you run into, right? Like unless you need it for time or you're trying to run up your score or whatever, right? So it's like I think it has a really good like easy to get into, but difficult to master if you want to really perfect your run. I think I could very much see it being like a one more run, one more run, one more run type of
Mhm.
game. I found myself where I was like, oh, cool, I'll play the first 10 floors or whatever, and I'll see what happens. I bet you that's the end of the demo. And then they're like, oh no, the princess got moved to the 20th floor. And I was like, oh shit. And I had a feeling by the time I was at the 10th floor, I was like, some of these floors like are starting to feel maybe a little repetitive. And then I got to 20 and I was like, oh, they're all different again. Okay. So it's like
Okay,
it
okay.
recycles elements per every 10 levels. I don't know if they're randomly generated or not. Sometimes it felt like maybe they were, sometimes it felt like maybe they weren't. I think I'll need to play it
Could
more
be a
and
mixture of 2.
could be.
There's a game, SteamWorld Dig, the first one, where there's pockets of stuff that is handcrafted at specific, like, levels, but the rest of the game is all procedurally generated, so there could be element of that where it's like you are seeing randomized stuff to keep the runs fresh, but there is gonna be stuff in there that is crafted. I think this looks, like, insane. I think this looks like anxiety inducing, but also fun and and crazy, and I love the sort of the visual. It's really committing to its look and
Yeah.
its bit. And yeah, this looks like I remember seeing this just like this was one of the first when Next Fest happened and people were like, "Here's what I'm playing." I saw this and I was like, "What is this?" And it's a ridiculous name, ridiculous. Everything's ridiculous. Reminded me a lot of what's the one? You've got the jacket and the animal heads, and it's top down, and you fly around. Cool. Everyone's gonna hate this. Yeah. Oh my god.
I have no
It's
idea.
oh you
Payday? Like, what are you
you
talking about?
no, it's the indie game. People are probably shouting at their screens right now. I'm pretty sure it's Devolver Digital. It's like a top down
Oh,
one.
oh, Gungeon? And no, not Enter the Gungeon.
No, get the
Miami, Hotline Miami?
yes, that's
Yeah,
exactly what I'm trying to
yeah.
say.
It
Yeah,
does
yeah.
have
This
it's
reminds me a
yeah,
lot of that, of like
yeah,
the you
totally.
pick a dude and you shoot a dude and you break down a door, and that's all from the trailer. Though I haven't played it to know that, but
Well, and
that's the
even,
vibe
like,
I'm
the
getting.
aesthetic, right, is like that,
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
80s, 90s retro wave, like, synth wave, anime influence, like, totally.
Yes.
Also, there are boss fights that are fucking sick. I
Excellent.
only got to the first one, and instead of it being time-based, you get, just a health bar then, you have, like, 100, you have like, you start at 99% or whatever, and you have to, like, make it through the fight, rather than it being, like, time-based at that point, and it breaks up the gameplay really well, I think. It's pretty challenging, and, yeah, it's really good, and, like, this being a game I hadn't heard of, and then seeing the art style and being like, "Oh, like, this is an aesthetic that speaks to me, like, why don't I give it a spin?" And then being like, "Oh, I don't want to stop playing this, I have to stop playing this if
Yeah.
I'm gonna try another game today." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm in, baby." I think this is one you should definitely check out.
I think
If
I'll give this
anything
one a
I
look.
said sounds interesting to you, give it a spin.
I went into this expecting to not like it. When I sort of saw the name and I looked at the thing, I was like, "All right," 'cause I remember this, and then the more you've talked about it and that, you described it as a roguelike, and you've said a lot of words that I like, and I'm gonna yeah, I'll give this one a
I
look.
think you might dig it. Like, I think it's a really good it's a good arcade experience, right? Because
Mhm.
I think it marries all the genres it's trying to play with really well. It brings new things to the table. It iterates on the familiar stuff that you like. Um, and I think its aesthetic and its world and its, like, quote unquote story are thin enough to get out of the fucking way of the gameplay, but realized enough to make it feel cohesive and, like, actually feel like it has identity, which is, I think, something games like this can struggle with sometimes, where it's like, oh, it's like, it's a run and gun, like, action type game. It's like, okay, cool, but, like, what's the vibe, right? Whereas, like, with Hotline Miami, like, that's one where you're like, ah, the animal heads and it's neon and it's like it has personality and
Yes,
it's a really fucking tight game. That's the vibe that this, it strikes that balance really well. So
absolutely.
I'd say if you're a fan of any of those genres, I would check it out. But I'll tell you, as somebody who's like kind of on the fence about almost all of those genres, I really think it hits. It is a good one. This was my favorite game that I played today.
Damn, okay. Yeah, I'll give this one a look. Excellent. It's 2 we're some bangers, just bangers, bangers, bangers. I love
Bangers
it.
after bangers today. Yeah,
Bangers
I'm
after
real pleased.
bangers.
Uh,
Before we go into my 3rd and final game I wanna talk about fully, why don't you tell the good folks or, let's do some housekeeping. Let's get it out of the way
You know what,
now.
Max? Yeah, let's do some housekeeping. Let me remind you that this episode of the Steam Deck Podcast is brought to you by our Patreon producers for the month of February. They are, of course, Arnold J. Rimmer, Christopher Valens, Earth Visitor, Gabriel Hasselmeyer, aka Sobe, Snackago, Steve Stompy, Susan Likes Cats and also Boobies, Ty the Dude, and Wakahula. Thank you all so much for your support over on patreon.com/flipscreengames. You all the reals to the real, and we greatly appreciate your support of this and all of our sister shows. Remember, if you want to go and show your support just like they did, if you want to write into the Steam docket and get your thoughts and questions read on the air, or if you just want to keep the conversation rolling over on our Discord in between episodes, you can find links to all that and much more by heading over to flipscreen.games. That's our website where you can find all the places we are all over the web. Remember, we've got some really fun Steam Next Fest content coming this week. Max is going to have his review of Ultros, excuse
Come on,
me.
man.
0 for 2 on that one, damn. Yep. Sorry, guys. Sorry, guys. Uh, he'll have his review for that. We're going to have some Steam Deck settings. We'll have some tips and tricks for new players. So if you are interested in checking out one of the games that Max played at Steam Next Fest that he really enjoyed. A hot new Metroidvania. You're gonna want to keep it tuned for all that stuff. Max, what is your next game?
My third and final game that I sort of played through and would like to talk about is a game called Berserk Boy. This is one that I wasn't really aware of until just before we had an email about it just before Next Fest started about like this game's coming to Next Fest. And I was like, yeah, all right, I'll give this one a look. It's a sort of a 16-bit era platformer, really, really, really reminiscent of Mega Man X. But Mega Man X isn't really my Mega Man. We spoke about this off mic just beforehand about how
You and I are Mega Man classic guys.
yeah, we like Mega Man. We like the classic Mega Mans. You know, take me 1 through 10, whatever, you know. But this very much felt like it was doing Mega Man X. It was similar style visually. It was a similar sort of idea.
Very like
And
about momentum too, right? Like obviously
yeah.
OG Mega Man, it's jump running and gunning, but like the dash, the slides, the like that kind of
Yeah,
stuff is
it's
very
about
Mega Man X.
moving. It's about moving, and this was about moving, you know. So like from a little bit of story we got at the start, it seems like you're a sort of a character. There's these elemental orbs. You as the protagonist can use these orbs to sort of give yourself a suit, similar to how Mega Man Rock wears his like Mega Man armor. When I pressed Y during the game, I had like a wheel to choose from, and um, there's sort of 8 slots, and only one of them had an orb, the one that I was using. So it seems like similar to Mega Man. You beat a boss, get an orb, and then you can use that element or that power or whatever, very much
Yo,
like Mega Man is.
sorry. Just I learned a fact here that's pretty cool. The music,
Go.
and this is done by T. Lopez, the composer from Sonic Mania, or
Oh,
one
cool.
of anyway. That's pretty sick.
There we go. Yeah, I actually did like some of the music. I didn't get a chance to hear much of it, but I did what I because I realized it was too. I was in my office playing it, and I realized it was too loud, and I was like, I'm jamming along to this, but I will turn this down. That is cool. I didn't know that.
So what's this is a re-release?
No, no, this is a new game.
'Cause well, I'm confused because it says on the trailer that I found on their
Hmm.
YouTube channel that,
Oh,
it says Berserk Boy is back, and they call it I don't know if they say re-release. What is it though? It's like, it's definitely a new game, but, like, it's
they've done one before.
yeah, but I
Y
don't know what the deal is. Is like, was it maybe like
It could be like a similar to how like Celeste was a free game jam sort of
yeah, like, it
game.
was like a itch kinda thing or something like that. I
Yeah, because 'cause
wonder
I'm on the Steam page for the developers, Berserk Boy Games, and they've only got 1 game. Um, but maybe, I mean, they could have maybe they did do a previous one, I can't,
I'm literally only basing it on just the weird name of the
oh,
trailer
the
that
fact that
I'm
it
looking
says
at.
that Berserk I don't know, I mean,
It
I
says
can't
Berserk Boy relaunch trailer 2024 is what it says. Yeah. So I don't know what the hell that means. Maybe like it's been in development for a while and they haven't talked about it in a while or something. I don't know. But
maybe. I can't see yeah, I can't
either
see
way,
anything about it.
it looks really cool.
Yeah, yeah, it was pretty cool. So, you can sort of jump and dash around like you can in Mega Man. You damage your enemies by doing the dash. There's a little bit of gun vault in it where like you dash into an enemy. There's like a connection between you and the enemy. You then press B and
Mhm.
you like shock the enemy for extra damage. You can do that with like so if you like dash into like 3 enemies and then jumps up in the air, you can press B and then shock all those enemies at once to do extra damage, which is kind of cool. You can use that to interact with the environment. You can like dash into a button and then press the B button to like shock the button to activate it. So before I was like hitting a button and shocking it and then going up to a door and be like, why isn't this door open? And what I actually had to do was be close enough to the door that the door doesn't stay open very long, so I had to shock it close to the door and you can interact with things like that. There's like you said before about momentum, there's a clear focus on momentum. You can sort of like charge through levels using like grind rails, and there's cannons, and you can sort of dash through enemies and stuff. But there's also in each level seems to be hidden secrets. There's like civilians that you speak to, and they're hidden around the level. You return them to your base. They sort of give you like a charge of this bar. I don't specifically know what the bar is called, but I got to 80% full of this bar. And towards the end of the first level, I found a door that basically required me to have filled this bar out. So I think that the plan is you revisit the levels and you go through things. I found there was some like unbreakable stone blocks in the first level. So I assume that later on I might get an orb. Maybe there's like a hammer guy that I fight or I don't know,
Yeah.
a drill guy or something like that, so I can break through those walls. So there's like, reasons to revisit the levels. I didn't finish this demo, I don't think. I did like the first 2 levels, and I was like, "All right, I get the general gist of this." Mega Man X isn't really my thing. It's not like where I picked up Shovel Knight and was like, "Yeah, this is Mega Man. This is what I want." I was like, "Yeah, this seems like something that I know I don't, already gel with very well." It's fun, I enjoyed it, but it doesn't do enough to, like, stand out for me as, like, something new and unique. It's like, this is very much doing a Mega Man thing without, really having too much of its own stuff right now, but that's just me having only played this demo and knowing not knowing an awful lot about it personally. Um,
Is it one you see yourself putting more time into, or are you maybe it's cool, but not your jam since you're
I
not
don't
as much of a Mega Man X guy?
I don't think I'll pick this up. I think if I was gonna sort of wanna play some more of this, I think I would start by playing Mega Man X, actually playing it,
Gotcha.
and play a bunch of the games that inspired it before I dive into sort of playing the likes,
Sure.
just so I can, so maybe that will give me a greater appreciation for what's going on here as well. But I enjoyed it. I had fun with it, and I think it looks great and it sounds great. What I heard of it, and there's
So
clearly some like
it sounds like if you are a Mega Man X fan, of which we know there are many, right? Like
yes,
maybe this is one to go check out.
oh absolutely, yeah, yeah. I still recommend giving this one a go because it is cool. And there's a it looks great. It's a really well like done 16-bit sort of SNES look to it. Even
Cool.
where like in some bits it's a little bit almost janky, I guess, like some of the textures and stuff, but that's because that's how it would have looked in the time, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
Totally. Cool,
The
man.
reason, by the way, let me just give you a little update here for those that were wondering. Berserk Boy first appeared on Steam in 2022 and immediately impressed as a fast-paced action platform inspired by Mega Man. Then it vanished from Steam, reappeared, vanished again. So I think that there must have been some problems with the development or with the publishing or whatever.
Interesting.
Um, but now it's back. So it's back and it's getting released and it's being published by the guys over at. Oh, I knew this because I thought of it earlier. Lock On. Who does Lock On? What are their names?
I don't know.
Oh, I've got like four. I
You
God,
look it up. You look it up. I'll talk about mine next
yeah.
time.
Good.
Okay.
Cool.
So my last game for the day is, and I guess our last game for the day, is a tycoon game that I checked out that's called News Tower. So this game, really, really cool one. If you are, at all familiar with the tycoon genre, right? Like your zoo tycoons, your roller coaster tycoons, your game dev tycoons. It's very much of that ilk, right? You play a character who your father and uncle are, kind of celebrated newsmen, and they had a newspaper that they founded together, and your father had to leave the paper behind, I guess, to go back to it seemed like it was like to go back to the old country for like a family reason. I don't know if that's actually going to get explored or not or whatever. But then the paper gets run into the ground. Your uncle owes a bunch of seedy guys money who he was borrowing to keep it running. And he kind of runs off and asks you to come home and fix the business. And that's where you pick things up. And it's, very much like what you'd expect if you're familiar with this kind of genre, right? Where you have a building, you can add floors as you expand your operations. You have folks who are it's their job to like control the news wire and get like leads on stories, and then you have to send reporters that have affinity for different types of like they can report on like crime or entertainment or sports or whatever. And you have to like have a team of reporters that have those different skills, and you send them out to go and do the job, and then when they come back you have a team of people that like put it to print and like process everything, and then you like literally you do the layout of your paper every week before it's time to run it on Sunday, and then you run the press, and like you get your return based on like all these different modifiers, like if you're building is shitty and the resources are bad, then like the quality of the writing goes down and people are less interested in the paper. Um, but then also there's like this other mechanic where like you're trying to expand your readership because the paper's been like failing the last couple years. So like you'll pick like a neighborhood, like that's like a borough of New York that you're trying to get into, and it'll be like, oh, like people in this neighborhood are interested in reading about sports and crime, right? So if you want to get readers in that area, you want to target those kinds of stories for a couple weeks or whatever, right? And then there'll be these other like world events that pop up that'll be like, oh, like this person from the mafia came and they're offering you, a certain amount of money if you don't report on politics this week, right? Or like, this person wants you to report on this kind of thing, so they're going to give you this money or whatever. Um, so yeah, it's like it's a very like, I think if you're a fan of this genre, it's like very tried and true, right? But I think the the setting, right, is very novel, right? Like running a paper is definitely a much different type of organization, right? Than there's other things to consider than just like profit margin or whatever, right? Like getting to like pick the layout and like what kind of stuff you're gonna report on and all that kind of stuff is definitely really cool and interesting. Um and again, it's like it's set in a cool time period. It's like, kind of like in this vague, like, 19 early turn of the century, right? Like 1920s,
Like 20s.
1940s. Yeah, kind of era. Um and yeah, like it's oh, I think it's the 1930s actually.
Oh,
It's
okay.
looks like up in the corner. It's January 1930. And I imagine that'll progress, right? Obviously as you go month to month, year to year. Um so yeah, I think it's really good. It's a very like well realized idea, I think, of like of the things you need to do to run a paper or whatever, and kind of the different challenges that you face. And I think it balances a good mix of like the things you need to do to like source stories and then develop them and make sure that they're high quality. Like you develop talent, and as you develop writers that become like senior reporters, they need more money and they need more like specific like care for you to keep them on staff, which like encourages you to continually upgrade your building and make sure that like parts of it are like the parts where people are working are comfortable, and the parts where you have a loud printing press that's giving off heat and smoke and shit is sequestered from where the people work, and that you've got enough bathrooms and all that kind of stuff. And it reminds me of like what I like the most about like Zoo Tycoon or like Roller Coaster Tycoon, where there's the element of like creativity and expression of like what are we trying, like am I just going to optimize profits, or am I trying to create a certain type of newspaper, right? And speak to
This
different
sounds
audiences, whatever.
sounds fucking exhausting, I must say. Like, even you talking about it, I'm shattered just trying to think about all these various options you've got going on here. Um, I can already tell this isn't my kind of game. Like, even just every word you've said there, I'm like, all right, cool, not for me. But yeah, like I I can see this being something that there are obviously a huge sort of fan of this. Remember, like video game developer's story, whatever that game was called, game dev.
Yeah,
What's
game
that
dev
called?
story, I think.
Game dev story. Yeah, where that seemed that had a huge audience, and again wasn't for me. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
Steve
hope
and
you're
I are
enjoying
both
it.
big management sim guys.
Oh yeah,
When they
this is
hit,
definitely this has got Steve written all fucking over it. I must say, numbers and these figures and stats and graphs.
yeah, and
Yawn.
let me live out my 1930s gumshoe journalism dream.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, great. Sounds good to me, man. So yeah, this is one that like again, I expected to try and kind of like evaluate its mechanics on a surface level and be like, this is cool. I might come back to it. And then I was like, oh shit, I've been playing this for 2 hours. I better put it down.
Yeah.
So
And
yeah,
that's for a demo as well. That's impressive.
yeah, and it controls well on deck. It's got mouse and keyboard controls, and I think the only thing about it that doesn't really work is that, like, some of the menus are small and, like, the fine motor control of clicking them is, like, a little finicky. Um,
Okay.
but a lot of times games like that on deck are just a nightmare, and this one is not. It works really well, and I think if you,
Okay, good.
like, are comfortable using the touchscreen too, like, it would be even easier. So, yeah, I think this is a great one for fans of the genre, and I think it's unique among games in the genre for being pretty at home on deck. So,
Good.
give it a shot.
Excellent. So before we sign off today, we agreed that we were going to talk about the games that we maybe bounced off of for whatever reason. So we've sort of got three games I think here that we'll probably uh sort of finish off on. What do you think?
Yeah, that sounds good. We'll go through them quickly.
So one game I bounced off of for two reasons, which is Harold Halibut. I was really excited to give this game a go. The trailer has it's fascinated me. This game always it's got like a real Um, it's stop motion. It sort of reminds me of the stop motion Tim Burton stuff, but also a little bit like the stop motion Fantastic Fox movie. Like there's just something about it that has that Wes Anderson feel to it, and it was really interesting. I was really interested in what that would be, and the game. It didn't run very well on the deck. Like I was getting like a choppy 30 FPS where it was like going "duh, duh, 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 duh," as I was playing. And I played about half an hour and I was just like, when does this start? I was bored. That probably is also me just being impatient with it and being like, I've got some stuff to get on with here, lads. Like let's crack on with this. Um, I just wasn't doing it for me, and I appreciate everything the game has. Just it didn't happen for me. The next one is Rolling Rascal. Apologise if you've just got some footage up for Harold Halibut as I finished talking about it, Pete. But
That's okay. I'm not gonna show any. I'm just not gonna
okay,
show these
good,
ones.
good.
Go
Uh,
Google them yourself. Sorry, kids.
there we go. Next one is Rolling Rascal. This was announced a little while ago as like a Sonic 3D Sonic spiritual successor kind of thing. Not from the original devs, but like that's the gist they're going
That's the
for.
vibe.
The Kickstarter came out this week, or in fact, it was yesterday, the time of recording, and I backed it because I was like, yeah, cool, give this a go. Only then to realize there was actually a demo today. I was like, oh, there's a demo on the next fest. I'll give that a go. And I played it, and I've cancelled my backing of the game just because it's just not for me. I never played the 3D Sonic, so I never knew if I was a fan or not. But I wanted to give them a go, and I wanted to sort of give this like give this a look and see what it's like. And yeah, just not for me. I think it's too fast. It's too like there's not enough like precision in the way that I'm like I like my platform to be precise. I like there to be like a challenge to it where I'm like, okay, I need to do this. I know exactly what I need to do.
Yeah,
Whereas this was like
they're very like floaty.
it's floaty, it's fast,
Yeah.
it's like it's get to the end as quickly as you possibly can. And there is some cool like there's a lot of cool stuff going on, and it very much felt like this is Sonic in 3D, but not for me. You know, I'm sure there are people that
Yeah.
will like it. It ran
Oh,
really well, I will say. It ran really well on deck for a demo for a 3D game as well. So
nice. Yeah, there's a huge audience for that. I think it's another one where if you're a fan of those games, go check it out.
yeah.
So the game I wanted to shout out that I bounced off of was Summer House. This is a game that I think is really interesting and I think is worth checking out. It's coming out in March, but it just didn't work very well on deck. It was a fine motor control issue, right? Where it's very, very clearly made for mouse and keyboard, and trying to meaningfully use the deck to build in it just wasn't working for me. So the game is like you have a like basically you have like a landscape, right? You have like these, I think, three different backdrop options, and you choose a section of it, and like you build houses, you build little like neighborhoods or whatever. And it's like that's the whole point of it. It's very unrestricted. It's very much just about like you creating a cute little like landscape. And what I really like about it is that it's all this beautiful pixel art. It has that like 2D, 3D like lighting to it where it's like there's this like, gorgeous reflective water, and then it's like these like this kind of like nice calm pixel scapes. And I think it's a game that like I could definitely see being really, really popular for people that like, the kind of like um the, like, building element of something like The Sims or something like that, right? But,
Mhm.
like, just wanna focus
Love
on
art style.
it's gorgeous, it's just
Mm.
so nice, and it's like, this is really probably not my kind of game, but I thought it was just so beautiful that, like, I really wanted to give it a shot, and I think it's definitely one that, like, fans of the genre should pay attention to.
Yes. Oh,
Summer
yeah,
House.
this really sort of reminds me of what we when we were playing Celeste talk about Celeste 64 and A Short Hike and that sort of like almost like it's based on DS games more than anything else.
Sure,
Like that
yeah.
sort of low poly, you know,
It's like half
Legend
between pixel and low poly, yeah.
yeah, like Legend of Zelda, Phantom Hourglass style, like it's yeah, like mixed between the two. But yeah, this looks again not my kind of game, but I like the visual element of it, and I think yeah, it's probably worth one looking at. You know,
Yeah, I
um,
artistically, it's just so gorgeous. So,
yeah,
if you're a
I'm
cozy gamer or a designer type, I think you should check it out.
I'm looking through the Steam Next Fest now to see like, oh, is there anything I might have missed? Anything I might sort of want to, there's things that you're talking about that I've not heard of, and I was like, okay, what am I missing? A lot of porn games, like a lot of porn games going on. I've just seen one of the largest pair of breasts I've seen on a video game character mere seconds ago. So
One of
Yeah,
the
a
top
lot.
trending was very like, "Oh, okay." Like, it's horny out. Everybody's being horny on main on this one. That's cool.
Yeah, there's literally a game
Not
called
here to kink shame. That's
Sex
fine.
Please. It's just called Sex Please, and,
Yes.
yeah, I mean, more power to you if you can buy that on your public Steam account, and when you load it up, it pops up to all of your friends in the bottom right-hand corner, "You're playing Sex Please." Fair play to you for that,
Max Wright is playing Sex Please.
but you'd never see it. I'll go private for that.
That's
I'll
for
go
his porn
private.
account, right, of course.
Yeah.
Lax right.
Yeah,
Anyway,
that's
no,
wrong.
what? Lax oh, there you go, lax wrong. Okay, anyway, that's where we're gonna end it for today. Thank you guys so much for joining us on another episode of the Steam Deck Podcast. Remember, if you wanna let us know that your favorite games that you played at Steam Next Fest, or if you played any of the games that we played and you also think that they're great, or you wanna argue with us and tell us that they're bad, well, guess what? I can ban you because it's my podcast, so you have to be nice to me. Anyway, thank you guys for joining us here for another episode of the show. If you want to show your support, if you want to write in, if you want to get involved in the community, if you want to do any of that stuff, make sure you head over to flipscreen.games. That's the website where we've got all the places we are all over the web, all the ways you can get involved in the community, show your support, and much more. Head over to flipscreen.games. Again, for the crew, I've been Pete. He's been Max. We'll see you next week.